The Amish have a way of doing things that might seem impossible to the modern world. No fancy technology, no chemical fertilizers, no massive industrial farms. Yet, they manage to grow enough food to feed their families for an entire year, sometimes even longer, all within small, carefully maintained plots of land. It's not just a skill, it's a way of life, a mindset, a deep-rooted understanding of the earth and how to work with it rather than against it. Many people today think you need acres of land, expensive equipment, and a lot of time to produce enough food for self-sufficiency. But the Amish prove otherwise. Their methods are simple, efficient, timeless, and surprisingly practical for anyone willing to learn. You don't need a big backyard or a farm, just a small space, some patience, and the right techniques. Let's dive into how the Amish manage to grow a year's worth of food in a tiny space, using strategies that you can start applying today. 1. The art of companion planting, plants helping plants. The Amish have a deep understanding of how plants interact with each other. It's not just about planting things randomly. It's about strategy, planning, knowing which plants thrive together and which ones don't. This is called companion planting, and it's one of the biggest secrets to growing more food in less space. Take the Three Sisters method, for example. Corn, beans, and squash grown together in harmony. The corn grows tall, providing natural support for the beans to climb. The beans fix nitrogen into the soil, enriching it for both the corn and squash. And the squash, it spreads across the ground, shading the soil and keeping moisture in. Three plants working together like old friends, each helping the other survive. But that's just one example. The Amish also plant carrots with onions. The onions repel carrot flies. They grow tomatoes with basil. Basil improves the flavor of tomatoes and deters pests. They mix lettuce with radishes. Radishes grow fast, loosening the soil for lettuce roots to spread easily. It's not just about saving space. It's about creating natural, self-sustaining ecosystems. No chemicals needed, just nature working as it was meant to. 2. Growing up, not out. The Amish use vertical space. When space is limited, the Amish don't grow outward. They grow up. Trellises, poles, wooden fences, even old ladders. Anything that can be used to support climbing plants gets put to work. This method isn't just about saving space. It also increases yield. Take cucumbers, for example. When grown on the ground, they sprawl everywhere, taking up valuable space. But when trained to climb a trellis, they take up almost no space at all. Plus, they get better air circulation, which means fewer diseases and healthier plants. Tomatoes? Same thing. The Amish grow them on sturdy wooden stakes, allowing sunlight to reach every part of the plant. This means bigger, juicier tomatoes. Green beans? They climb tall wooden poles, making harvesting easy. Even melons, yes, melons, can be grown vertically, using slings made from cloth to support their weight. It's a simple concept, but it makes a massive difference when trying to grow a year's worth of food in a small area. 3. Soil is everything. The Amish secret to rich, fertile earth. Ask any Amish farmer, and they'll tell you the same thing. Good soil is everything. Without it, nothing grows. The problem? Modern agriculture depletes the soil, forcing people to rely on artificial fertilizers. The Amish? They do things differently. Instead of chemical fertilizers, they feed the soil naturally. They use compost, manure, mulched leaves, grass clippings. They rotate crops, ensuring the soil never gets exhausted. They even let fields rest every few years, planting cover crops like clover to restore nutrients. But here's the real secret. They build deep, rich soil over time. Instead of constantly tilling, they add layers upon layers of organic material. This creates loose, nutrient-dense earth where plants can grow deep roots. More roots mean stronger plants. Stronger plants mean more food. And the best part? You can do this too, even in a small garden. Start a compost pile. Add organic matter. Keep feeding your soil, and it will feed you in return. 4. No empty spaces. Intensive planting for maximum yields. If you've ever seen a modern garden, you'll notice something: a lot of empty space. Long rows of plants with big gaps in between. Looks neat, but it's incredibly inefficient. The Amish? They plant densely. No wasted space. Every inch of soil gets used. They grow leafy greens under taller crops. Lettuce and spinach thrive in the shade of tomatoes and corn. They plant fast-growing crops between slower-growing ones. Radishes grow in just 30 days, while carrots take months. This means by the time the carrots are ready, the radishes are already harvested and the space gets used again. This method doesn't just maximize space. It also protects the soil. When the ground is constantly covered with plants, moisture stays in, and weeds have less room to grow. Smart, right? 5. Continuous harvesting. The Amish never stop growing. Most people think of gardening as a summer thing, but the Amish? They plant in waves so there's always something growing. Spring crops, lettuce, peas, radishes. Summer crops, corn, tomatoes, beans. Fall crops, cabbage, carrots, beets. Winter crops, kale, spinach, leeks. They even use cold frames, simple glass-covered boxes, to grow food in the middle of winter. This means there's never a dead season. Something is always producing. And over time, that adds up to a massive amount of food. 6. The Amish way of preserving food, storing a year's worth of harvest. Growing food is one thing, but storing it? That's where the Amish truly shine. They don't rely on refrigerators or freezers. Instead, they use traditional preservation methods that keep food fresh for months, even years. Root cellars, underground storage for potatoes, carrots, onions, and apples. Stays cool year-round. Canning, glass jars filled with preserved vegetables, fruits, soups, and meats. No electricity needed. Fermentation, sauerkraut, pickles, and fermented dairy products that last for months. Drying, herbs, beans, corn, and even meats are dried and stored in airtight containers. By combining these methods, the Amish ensure they have food year-round, even in the harshest winters. 7. The real Amish secret: community and tradition. Here's the truth. The Amish don't do this alone. They rely on each other. Families help one another plant, harvest, and store food. If someone has extra, they share. If someone needs help, they receive it. This sense of community is a big reason why their food system works so well. No one struggles alone. No one goes hungry. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Growing enough food for a year isn't just about techniques. It's about mindset, simplicity, hard work, and a willingness to work together. Because in the end, that's how the Amish thrive. And maybe, just maybe, it's how we should too. 8. Growing food without modern technology. The Amish approach to self-sufficiency. In today's world, growing food is often associated with expensive machinery, synthetic fertilizers, and automatic irrigation systems. But the Amish have proven that none of that is truly necessary. They grow a year's worth of food using only traditional tools and methods. Instead of relying on gas-powered tillers, they use hand tools, hoes, spades, and rakes. Instead of chemical pesticides, they use natural solutions, like planting marigolds to repel insects or introducing ladybugs to control aphids. Instead of watering with modern sprinkler systems, they capture and store rainwater in barrels, then use it efficiently. One of their biggest secrets? Mulching. By covering the soil with straw, leaves, or wood chips, they create a natural moisture barrier, meaning they need far less water. The soil stays cool, retains moisture, and reduces the need for constant watering. These traditional methods might seem outdated, but they work. They've been working for centuries, and they allow the Amish to be completely self-sufficient without relying on modern conveniences. 9. Natural pest control, keeping crops safe without chemicals. A big reason modern farms use pesticides is simple. Pests destroy crops. But the Amish don't rely on chemicals to keep their plants safe. They let nature do the work instead. Companion planting. Basil repels mosquitoes and flies. Garlic keeps aphids away. Nasturtiums attract pests away from vegetables. Encouraging beneficial insects. Ladybugs eat aphids. Praying mantises hunt harmful bugs. Bees pollinate crops. Crop rotation. By changing where they plant crops each year, the Amish prevent soil-borne pests from taking hold. Homemade sprays. They make natural insect repellents using soap, garlic, and neem oil. Because they don't spray synthetic chemicals, their food is healthier, their soil remains fertile, and their ecosystem stays in balance. They don't try to dominate nature. They work with it. 10. Small livestock for a year-round food supply. The Amish don't just grow plants. They also raise small livestock in tiny spaces to ensure a constant supply of fresh food. Chickens. They provide eggs daily and require very little space. Plus, they eat food scraps and produce manure that enriches the soil. Rabbits. These animals are easy to raise, require minimal space, and reproduce quickly, providing a steady source of meat. Goats. A few goats can provide milk, cheese, and even meat in a backyard-sized space. Ducks. Unlike chickens, ducks forage for pests and are great for pest control in a garden. The Amish don't keep massive herds. Instead, they keep just enough animals to provide for their needs. No more, no less. 11. Saving seeds, the Amish secret to infinite food. One thing that sets the Amish apart from most modern farmers is that they don't buy seeds every year. They save seeds from their best plants so that they can grow stronger, healthier crops season after season. This means that their plants gradually become more resistant to local pests and weather conditions. Over time, the seeds adapt to the land, producing higher yields and requiring less maintenance. Modern gardening often relies on hybrid seeds, which can't be saved and regrown. The Amish, on the other hand, only use heirloom seeds, seeds that have been passed down through generations. This allows them to be completely independent from seed companies. If you want to grow a year's worth of food like the Amish, start by saving your seeds. It's one of the biggest steps towards self-sufficiency. 12. The power of perennial plants. Food that grows back every year. Annual crops like tomatoes and lettuce need to be replanted every year. But the Amish also rely on perennial crops, plants that grow back year after year without needing to be replanted. These include asparagus. Once planted, it produces food every spring for decades. Rhubarb, a hardy low-maintenance plant that comes back stronger each year. Berry bushes, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, all return every season, producing more fruit each time. Fruit trees, apples, pears, peaches. These trees take a few years to mature, but once they do, they provide food for generations. By combining perennials with annual crops, the Amish create a continuous cycle of food production that requires less effort over time. 13. Growing in all seasons, even in winter. Most people think gardening is only for warm months, but the Amish grow food all year long, even in winter. How? Cold frames, simple wooden boxes with glass tops that trap heat and let plants grow even in freezing temperatures. Hoop houses, mini greenhouses made from plastic and metal hoops, extending the growing season by months. Underground greenhouses, called wallopinis. These greenhouses are built into the ground. using the earth's warmth to grow crops all winter. Even when there's snow on the ground, the Amish can still harvest fresh greens, carrots, and herbs. 14. Amish money-saving secrets: cutting costs while growing more food. One of the biggest myths about growing food is that it's expensive. The Amish prove otherwise. They spend almost nothing on gardening and still produce an abundance of food. They don't buy seeds every year. They save and trade seeds with neighbors. They don't buy expensive fertilizers. They use compost and manure. They don't rely on commercial pesticides. They use natural pest control methods. They don't waste money on water. They collect and use rainwater. They don't waste food. Everything gets preserved, canned, or shared. This frugal approach means that their gardens pay for themselves many times over. 15. The Amish mindset: the real secret to growing a year's worth of food. After everything, there's one final Amish secret that's more important than any technique, tool, or method. It's their mindset. They see growing food not as a chore, but as a way of life. They understand that nature provides everything they need. They respect the land, and in return, the land provides for them. They don't expect instant results. They build systems that grow stronger over time. And most importantly, they don't do it alone. They work together. They share knowledge. They help each other succeed. This is why the Amish can grow a year's worth of food in a small space. Not because they have some magical farming technique, but because they have a deep understanding of nature, community, and patience. And the best part? Anyone can follow their example. You don't need a farm. You don't need fancy tools. You just need a willingness to learn, adapt, and respect the land. If you start today, in a year's time, you might just be harvesting enough food to feed yourself, just like the Amish do.